Out of absolutely nowhere, Brendan Schaub and Nate Diaz have been beefing on Twitter, and believe it or not, Brendan Schaub, 10-8, possibly 10-7 to Nate Diaz. I mean, it's not hard to get a one-up on trash talk, but you don't hear the internet collectively agreeing and kind of laughing at the butt of the joke that Brendan Schaub is making somebody out to be, if that makes sense. We're going to take a look at all of it for you today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. Guys, let's all start off with this tweet by Nate Diaz that kind of came out of nowhere. Brendan the big old pussy Schaub. So, of course, we're going to recap what Nate said. We're going to take a look at Brendan Schaub's response, his video reply to it, which everybody's been talking about. And then we're going to take a look at replies to Brendan's clip, Brendan himself, and Nate Diaz to kind of get a gauge on how people are feeling about this, to get a bunch of different replies from it. But what happened was Brendan Schaub was initially talking about CTE and how serious it was, and he was he didn't really make a joke video or anything, but Nate Diaz just took it upon himself to go, Brendan the big old pussy Schaub, just like Nate Diaz sometimes does. So Brendan Schaub ended up replying to this and had this to say: "Oh, buddy, I probably got like 20 pounds on you, so it's not too far off. I'll snap your neck. Set up a grappling match and let me know how it goes for you. Have one of your handlers read this tweet and get back to me." Now, what's funny is I did see this tweet, and I didn't think anything of it. I don't know why. I didn't even know he was beefing with Nate Diaz, but regardless, of course, Brendan Schaub would absolutely steamroll Nate Diaz, but you still have those Diaz 209 or 205 fans. What is it, 209? Stockton 209. Why am I having a blank on that? It doesn't really matter. You have those fans that still, no matter what, all the Diaz brothers will never lose a fight. They just run out of time, right? So let's continue on. Brendan Schaub actually uploaded a video, and we have MMA Casuals over here, which is a great page. You guys should go check them out. Brendan Schaub goes off on Nate Diaz. "You're not some tough guy to me. It's all fake. You're not fooling everyone. What are you going to do, Nate? Volume punch me." Get this. He just destroyed Nate Diaz.
Whole narrative, your entire narrative. Oh, fuck the man. Bud, you've been paid more than...
Hang on. just the way he's imitating Nate's demeanor and saying that is just perfect and on spot. But let's continue on.
Narrative. Oh, fuck the man. Bud, you've been paid more than 99% of the fighters. Cut the bullshit. You're no different than Kobe Compton, this MAGA shit. It's all fake, bud. You're not fooling anybody.
No, that's not true. He's fooling a lot of people. He's fooling a lot of people. There's a lot of people who just seriously take what Nate Diaz says to heart.
See how the sausage is made. You're not tough to me. I know tough guys. Tough guys don't get on the internet and tweet at another grown fucking man who beat the shit out of them.
Now, here's the issue, though, is obviously from everything that we've seen with Nate Diaz, he is a tough guy, but Brendan's completely correct in saying that he would just destroy him.
When they're crying or they're getting emotional because their friend of 20 fucking years is having major issues, suicidal thoughts. That's pussy. That's the difference between you and I. I'm not some moron who buys into your tough guy narrative, bud. I don't give a fuck you're from Sacramento. That's your biggest thing? That's it? That's the narrative?
Yeah, hold up. That's like literally what Nate Diaz is known for now. Hold up.
I know tough guys from Sacramento. What are you gonna do, Nate? What are you gonna do? Volume punch me, motherfucker? That's what
and that's the best part about it, right? Because Nate Diaz, that's literally all he has, right? And especially, he can't even do that now at this point in his career.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Out grapple me? In what fucking sense? What world are you living in? This is the real world. Now, if you're doing this because you fancy yourself a fisticuffs, if you fancy yourself, you want to actually grapple me, I'm not hard to get a hold of. Pull the fuck up.
Oh my God, yeah, and you know Nate Diaz won't. He'll just say something like, "Whoa, he's a pussy." That's all the Nate Diaz trash talk could be summed up to be. "Oh, you want none of this smoke, Schaub? Hold up." But Schaub would, Nate Diaz knows Schaub would just steamroll him.
And you can show up with all your boys, do all that stuff. But what a real man will do is pull up one-on-one. I don't have a posse. I don't need one, bud. I'll drop my kid off at fucking practice, roll over, twist your fucking neck off, and then pick him up just in time unscathed with a Diet Coke.
What's great about this, though, is it's accurate. That's exactly what Brendan Schaub could do to Nate Diaz, right? Nate Diaz would have absolutely nothing for Brendan Schaub.
And that's how this goes for the rest of your fucking life, bud. Whenever I want.
Now, it's everything that he said there is pretty good, but there's only two things that I do disagree with. Obviously, Nate Diaz is a tough guy, and the other thing is I think Schaub used butt a little bit too many times, but still, I say this is a solid 10-8 from Brendan Schaub, and it seems like the collective internet kind of thinks the same thing. And how crazy is it, by the way, because you don't usually hear this type of thing about Brendan Schaub, right? I like Brendan Schaub. I've always liked Brendan Schaub, and I've had some pushback for that. Even people in my personal life were like, how do you like Schaub? I'm like, I don't know. I always like his podcast. I'm not like a super Brendan Schaub fan or anything, but I always like Schaub, and it's nice to see people coming around to him a little bit. So I wanted to take a look at not just my thoughts. I'd love to hear from you what you guys think in the comment section, by the way, but I want to get a gauge on how people are feeling about this in general, taking replies to both Nate Diaz's tweet, Brendan Schaub's tweet, and that video in general, and a couple more from the Explore page over on Twitter. So Adam Dessen had this to say, and this is in reply to Nate Diaz. Bro, you have some growing up to do. He's a bigger man than you will ever be. Loser. Fake. And this is the issue, right? Take it easy, kitty. You'll be okay. The Nate Diaz fans coming back in, and I don't even understand, like, do the Nate Diaz fans legitimately think, they must legitimately think that Nate Diaz would beat Brendan Schaub in any sort of fight. Doesn't make any sense to me, but let's continue on to DJ Merc City. People thinking Brendan Schaub wouldn't beat the absolute dog shit out of Nate Diaz just because you might like Nate more than Brendan is hysterical. There are weight classes for a reason, you morons. And it doesn't even, like, but this is the issue too. Nate is significantly more skilled than Schaub, not nearly enough of a gap to make a difference, unfortunately. Like, he would get smashed no matter what. Yeah, weight classes do exist for a reason, and Brendan Schaub is a big UFC heavyweight. It's not like Brendan Schaub has no skill. Was he the best? No, he wasn't the best at all. But neither is Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz only won on his toughness and his cardio pretty well. Nick was an infinitely better fighter than Nate ever was. Mr. Just had this to say, that big old pussy would beat the brakes off of 90% of humanity, including Eugene. That's a reply to Nate Diaz. Completely true. And there's always the guy. LOL, Diaz would tap him. I'm interested to see the replies to this one, okay? Not a chance. Sure, there's no chance. Diaz is a black belt in Gracie Jits. He has way better cardio. He doesn't pull his hamstring jogging. I don't understand. I will never understand these people and their logic, okay? Let's continue on to Nate Yo. I like Shaw, but he's acting like a tough guy if you ask me. The dude's been on TRT for how long now? Nate is definitely not afraid of his ass. Who is Shaw beating in a fight? That's impressive, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's bigger. Nate Diaz, like, is Nate Diaz even more skilled? Have you watched Nate Diaz in recent years? He's slow. He doesn't throw any punches, and he plays that facade of like, I don't even care about this fight. I'm just going to run away and then just do that stupid little kick. He does that because he's not capable and not in shape to fight people anymore. I'm not saying that Brendan Schaub's in some incredible shape, but he would steamroll Nate Diaz. Oh, I'm interested in what MMA Casuals had to say about this. I feel like Schaub is just responding to being called a pussy for crying about his friend who is struggling with very real issues. Also, Schaub KO'd Mirko Cro Cop. That's true. Yeah, I get that for sure, but acting like he would just ragdoll Nate is hilarious to me. No, he literally just would ragdoll Nate Diaz. He'd have nothing for him, okay? Drew G had this to say, Nate got triggered, and I'll tell you why. Schaub valued the health of his mind and future endeavors after fighting, largely because Joe Rogan encouraged him to. A lot of fighters don't feel good about their retirement or future after fighting, so when they hear a guy who was confident in their career after fighting who protected their brain, it can trigger the guys who are sacrificing their brains and don't feel positive about their future. I don't think that Nate Diaz would think that in-depth about it, to be honest with you. That is a very, very well thought out statement. I just don't know if it necessarily applies to Nate. I think he's a little too far gone for that, okay? Matthew had this to say, I like this for Schaub. The comedy thing is not working. Internet drama could. It has a good point to it. I've always said, like I said, I've always liked Brendan Schaub, but I can't say that I've enjoyed his comedy, unfortunately. It could work because it's sincere, not because it's so-called internet drama, but I agree with you nonetheless, it could work. That's true. Schaub was really sincere in that. This is the problem with Schaub, too, is he find himself, like, picking fighters, agreeing with fighters that he a little bit has a relationship with. But then again, a lot of other fighters do that, too. Do I really want to knock him for that? No. Nate Diaz has always been lame as fuck. Somehow all he's good at is making getting your ass whooped look cool. That's exactly where I'm coming from, man. That's so true. He gets destroyed, and they'll go in the ring, act like he doesn't care, and people eat it up. Like, oh, Nate could have killed him whenever he wanted. Like, no, Nate Diaz is only doing that. And one of my unpopular hot takes, is that's the reason Anderson Silva was doing that to Chris Weidman. I will die on that hill. I'm going to make a UFC hot takes video one day, guys. MMA Guru had this to say: the redemption arc for Brendan Schaub is crazy right now. Nate Diaz does not get to back out of this and acting like nothing happened. Show up and back your talk, Nate. Make the fight happen now. What are you going to do? Volume punch me? Little soy slow vegan hashtag Team Schaub. That actually was a really good line. What are you going to do? Volume punch me? That's like, man, I don't know if that was off like just off the cuff with Schaub. He just thought about it on spot. Very, very well said. Very good insult, okay? Love this. Brendan is an absolute beast. People forget that. He would smash 99.9% of the world up in a street fight, including Nate. Nice one, Brendan Schaub. Completely agree. 100% well said. Joel, too, Real had this to say: being a credible UFC heavyweight is such a cheat code, LMFAO, because he would actually kill Nate. Nate doesn't even hurt other welterweights. His punches wouldn't do shit to a heavyweight, let alone the grappling. And I know what you're going to say to this. Well, Nate Diaz rocked Leon Edwards. It doesn't matter. That was a 1 in a million. How many times have we seen Nate Diaz not have any effect on anybody whatsoever? That Leon Edwards shot was a 1 in a million for Nate Diaz. It would never happen again. Well, you know, unless you go buy a lottery ticket if that happens again. But weight classes exist for a reason. Brendan Schaub clapped back at Nate Diaz perfectly. The weird thing is, he was coming from a good place, right? He really cares about CTE. He really cares about a friend for his. And Nate Diaz just kind of came out of nowhere. Brendan, big old pussy Schaub. Like, to be honest with you, what Nate said was kind of funny. Like, just because I can imagine the way that Nate would say it. I've always found the Diaz brothers entertaining. But this was kind of set up for Nate to lose. And now he's himself is looking like a weak one, because Brendan Schaub literally challenged him to not even just a fight, a grappling match, which is supposedly Nate's strength, right? Weight classes exist for a reason. Brendan Schaub, to my knowledge, still trains fairly regularly. He would just steamroll Nate Diaz no matter what. He's bigger, he's stronger, and Nate Diaz, he might be a little bit more technical, but that does not even matter. It doesn't matter at all. Brendan Schaub would tear Nate Diaz a new one. And my little puppy came to come visit us over here. I'm about to take her out, so we are going to call the video right there. Thank you so much for watching the video, everybody. I'd love to know what you think about in the comment section down below. Check out this video on screen right now. YouTube thinks you'll like it the best. Take care, everybody.